poliglotta, parla 7 lingue, si occupa di botanica, di filosofia, di politica, di tantissime cose, esplora, cerca ed è curioso, quella che definisce la curiosità la dote più importante dell'esistenza. Viggo Mortensen.
Viggo!
Grazie. Le note biografiche ti danno dentro un cinema già a 3 anni e a 4 anni si stende questo ricordo. Tu sei a vedere in una sala di Buenos Aires Lawrence d'Arabia, sei molto affascinato dai cammelli mentre tua madre è più preoccupata dalla sorte di Lawrence.
Parlare in inglese perché è più veloce per me. Scusi, o può essere in spagnolo.
Como quieres.
Bueno, español. La verdad que...
¡Ay, Viggo!
No.
¿Qué quieres?
Me dicen que no se puede...
Ah, en español no, en inglés.
Así que,
Dale, disculpas, sorry. Yeah, when I was, I guess 3.5, 4 maybe, my mother took me to this movie, and at that time I was already beginning to ride horses. I love horses, I still love them. And this is one of the things I was very interested in these, I didn't even know what they were called. And in the pause, in the middle of the movie, like in those old movies, you could go and have a Coca-Cola. And my mother was already talking, asking questions. And she says, what do you think is going to happen, in the story? I said, well, Lawrence and his friend, Omar Sharif, they're really good at riding those, what are they called? And she says, camels. These horses with the strange back. They are really good at riding those. The English guys are not so good, so I think they will be okay. I think they will win. That was my my film idea at that time. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I remember very clearly seeing this movie the first time. I saw lots of movies with my mother in Buenos Aires in those years, between 3, 4. And well, all of my life with her, but until I left when I was 11, we went to the movies a lot. She took me to movies like that, and every once in a while there would be a European movie, sometimes an Italian movie, or a movie that I was much too young to see, which was called Cronica de un Niño Solo, it was the first movie of Leonardo Fabio, who became a very important Argentine director in the 60s, and this was a very disturbing story about a kid who escapes from an orphanage, black and white, kind of his response to Italian neorealism cinema. I realize now, at the time I was just like, wow, this poor kid. But I saw movies like that, or Man for All Seasons. When I went with my little brothers, of course, then we saw Mary Poppins and like that. But I like these other big, serious movies more. Yeah. And if they had horses, much better. Or camels.
Tutti i tuoi primi anni, tu nasci negli Stati Uniti, poi ti trasferisci 2 anni in Argentina e vivi principalmente a Buenos Aires, ma non sono rare le escursioni nella zona, diciamo, del nord rurale dell'Argentina, Chaco, Resistencia.
Abbiamo abitato in Chaco.
Tua madre ha abitato in Chaco ed è pieno di sacchi a pelo, gite a cavallo, notti in macchina, avventura, libertà, anche se a 7 anni frequenti un collegio. Se dovessi definire la primissima infanzia per te, che tempo è stato? Il tempo della scoperta, il tempo della curiosità, il tempo per capire anche come fare a restare da soli e come immaginare stando da soli?
What, I had two, I have two younger brothers. The second one was born, he was a little bit, had some health problems in the beginning, so he was quite small, and the two of them were like the same size physically until they were 15 or 16 or something. So they were kind of hanging around together. We played together, but I spent a lot of time by myself. I liked being by myself. And so when we lived in the country, and my father was Danish, and he grew up on a farm, and so the jobs he got in Argentina had to do with agriculture usually. And so for periods, we were in the province of Buenos Aires on a farm, and then in the north in Chaco, which is up near Paraguay, subtropical, big extensions, some jungle, but usually just big extensions of high grass. And there I would grab a horse and just go. For hours or all day long sometimes, and I enjoyed this. I liked, imagination goes, you imagine you are an explorer, you imagine you're a gaucho or a cowboy, or as a kid you don't put any barriers on yourself, so I would imagine I was like an indigenous person from there, I was like white blonde hair and blue eyes. I felt like I was like a warrior Indian on horseback, riding through the trees or in the high grass, and I enjoyed always. I've always liked that, and everybody's different, but even today, I don't mind being by myself. I can be by myself for days and not even talk to anybody, and I don't feel lonely necessarily. I like people. I like you guys. And it's nice that people want to see my work and you interact. And what I like about movies really is this collective effort. It's mysterious how it happens. That's the thing I most enjoy about it. But I like to be by myself, and that's what I remember. Most of my memories of my childhood are in nature, or if we were in Buenos Aires, wandering around the streets or in parks and just imagining things that I was going to do. Adventures. Well, in a friendly way, it's always traumatic on some level. And in this case, we're talking about 1970 when we left Argentina. My three brothers and I, we only spoke Spanish together until we went to the United States. They could understand English, but especially the youngest one, he refused to speak it. My mother was concerned, the year before we left, 69 or so, when he was 5, she said, ask him to say something in English to me, just once a day, because I know he understands, because when I ask him things in English, he responds in Spanish, but he responds to the question. And so I said, Walter, por favor, decile algo. Walter, please say something in English once in a while to Mom, just be nice. And he goes, no, it's a garbage language. I said, who told you? Un idioma porquería. I said, who told you this? He said, I just know. I said, okay, 5 years old. Anyway, so it was a big change, and back then, of course, there's no internet, there's no cell phones, there's no satellite TV. We go to a part on the Canadian border where it's only English, and there's 2 or 3 TV channels, like it used to be in Italy in 1970, same thing. And that's it, but there was some radio and some TV. Sometimes you could see from the other side of the St. Lawrence River, Quebec, and Ontario, and it would be in French. And I liked the hockey games I would see on TV, and they had the same colors as San Lorenzo, Montreal Canadiens. They were very good then. So
Montreal Canadiens.
So I wanted to learn about this sport, and I wanted to understand what they were saying, the French. So I started to want to learn French. Anyway, it was a complete displacement. It was not like now. If your family moves away, you have your cell phone, you have, I don't know what you have. You have X, you have Instagram, kids have it, they stay in touch. But I lost touch with my friends and everything. and the language. There was nobody speaking Spanish. And my brothers, who only spoke Spanish with me until we got there, within 2 weeks, they were only speaking English. And so I was with my comic books in Spanish, and some souvenirs from the San Lorenzo team, and some books, you know, some novels for adolescents. And so I lost touch, you know, really. But I mean, I was old enough that it stayed with me, and even though I didn't speak Spanish for some years with anyone, I remembered, and the accent was like an Argentine, you know. So, and then when I finally went back many years later on my own as an adult to Argentina, I spoke like them, but they were laughing because I was speaking like their parents or their grandparents. I had an argot slang that was from the 60s. And they were like, what are you talking about? You sound so old-fashioned, you know. But then I adapted, and yeah, so I don't know who I am. I have no idea. Basically, that's the result.
Proprio non pensi, non hai mai pensato?
Well, I always, from when my mother first took me to the movies, and I went with her all her life, you know, to see movies, and we always had conversations like cinephiles, even more when I was little, you know, like this question when I'm watching Lawrence of Arabia and I'm 4, she says, what do you think will happen now? And then after the movie, what do you think about what happened, about this story? It was like we had these conversations, and they became more complex as I got older, obviously, with her. But so I was always interested in how these things were made. I was curious about it. And I don't know, there was a moment around this age, 22, 23, kind of late in a way, to even think about trying to learn to be an actor, when I was also someone who was not socially brave, you know, about speaking in front of people. Now I can do it. I've become accustomed, you know, like you learn anything. So I'm okay. I'm not nervous right now, really. So, but I was watching, I made a transition from watching movies, and do I like the story, the way it's told, am I interested, to asking myself, how is it done? What is the trick? Seeing certain movies, you know, I mean, a variety of movies from different places, movies that affected me, you know, old movies like The Passion of Joan of Arc, of Carl Dreyer, where the acting was so strong, or let's say a couple of movies from around 77, 78, this period. I started thinking about it, you know, like Autumn Sonata of Bergman, or The Deer Hunter, or Una Giornata Particolare of Ettore Scola, things like this. I'm like, they seem so real, or I am affected by the behavior. What's the trick? So I assumed it was the actors. Oh, the actors make this happen, you know? So I wanted to be an actor, I wanted to try that. But then I quickly realized, oh, there's a script, of course. And there are other actors, there's a director. And very importantly, there's an editor. And sometimes the actors are not very good when you're shooting, and then in the movie they're great, you know? So it's a collaborative medium, and that's became interesting to me right away. And from the beginning, as an actor, I always, you know, this journey from the page to the screen is a complicated one, but it can be much more efficient than you expect if the preparation is good and the communication is good between the director and the rest of the team, you know. So that's what I've learned over the years watching, but I've always been interested, you know. And so when I finally got a chance to direct, it wasn't surprising to me how it functioned, because I'd been paying attention and watching, you know. The only difference was that in the end, I am responsible for the final result, whereas as an actor, I'm just one color in the palette of the director that's putting together the picture, you know. So, you've done your research. Maybe you remember more than I do.
E per tirarle fuori a te, per fartele raccontare. Sono stati anni inutili, anni divertenti, anni coraggiosi, anni che hai dimenticato, anni che ogni tanto ti fanno visita quando devi inventare una storia e metterti al lavoro col pensiero.
You mean like if these jobs helped me in that way, or that period?
Certo, sì.
Yeah, I mean, life experience, also a respect for people who work. You know, the different jobs. I mean, I worked on the docks in Copenhagen, truck driving, selling flowers on the street, selling ice cream on the street, working in metal factories. I mean, all these different jobs, some with manual labor, just interacting with people. The importance of showing up on time and doing a good job so you don't get fired, and so you're being supportive of the people that depend on you. These are important things to learn. Sometimes I've seen young actors be lazy, show up, not know their dialogue, not show up on time, keep people waiting on the set for whatever reason. To me, it's unacceptable. And, you know, as a director, the 2 movies I've made, I've been really careful when I'm putting the team together, the crew and the cast. I ask them questions, just how they like to work. And if I hear something about, oh, I don't like it when they make me do this, or I only like good coffee, it's like, well, go work with someone else. I can't guarantee good coffee. No, it's just a stupid example, but you know what I mean? There's a respect for the work. You know, you have to be prepared, you have to do a good job, and you have to be flexible and adapt to other people. Everybody has different ways of getting up in the morning, but it's important to make the effort to be prepared. You know, a lot of people are depending on you if you're an actor, or if you're a focus puller, or, you know, anybody. So I think an appreciation of doing a good day's work and doing your best, you know. I think that's what I got from that period. And and I've been exposed then and before in my life to different cultures, different points of view. All of this helps you as an actor, as a movie storyteller, to see that there are many ways of looking at a similar situation, you know. That's good for storytelling, I think.
Il personaggio del romanzo di McCarthy, dormi al freddo per alcune notti, hai dormito in costume fuori per preparare il ruolo di Aragorn, hai un'aderenza al lavoro che confina con la maniacalità, no? Cioè il controllo sulle cose, l'esperienza empirica diretta è più forte di qualunque lettura, devi vedere per sapere.
Go ahead. That's the other thing. On my sets, there's no phones. I say this in the beginning. If you have to have your iPhone, then you should work on another movie. It's like cigarettes, you know. I mean, I like to smoke, but I don't smoke on the set. And so cigarettes are the same as phones on the set. I mean, they should be here too. You have to refresh my memory what you were saying.
No, che ogni volta che tu sei chiamato...
Sì. È una combinazione. What's on the page is really important, and it's just a clue. There can be a sentence that refers to a historical moment, or there's a year, or there's a place, and you can never do enough research, and if you enjoy doing it, then it's great. I really like digging in and finding out if this person is from this place and I don't know this place, if I can possibly go there, that country, that town, and just walk around and feel it. It's not something that you're going to necessarily see or hear, but I feel more prepared, more comfortable. I mean, the most important thing really is to be relaxed and feel comfortable. Then you take in the information from the other actors or the director or whoever you're working with. much easier because you're not nervous. I can't remember my lines. I don't know where I'm from. What should the accent be? You know, all this you should do before. And plus, I enjoy it. It's like traveling mentally. So sometimes you don't have time. Sometimes you get the job 2 days before and you have to do whatever you can. But I enjoy the research period. That's always a guarantee to be an education and a good experience. Sometimes the movies don't turn out well, but the research period, that's mine, and that's the gift I get from this experience, and that's always worthwhile. I always get something from that, so it's important. And you know, some people hear, oh, he did this, or he's walking around with his sword, or he's never staying away from his horse all the time. I don't have to do that all the time, but you do it until you feel really comfortable, and it's like, okay, now I know this thing, and now I can leave it and come back, and it's going to be natural. The idea is it should be natural, so like in a Western, since I know horses from when I was very little, I can tell immediately if someone's comfortable around the horse, just as they walk up to the horse, before they even get on. Certainly the way they get on, you know right away, and then it doesn't ruin the movie. Sometimes it's a good Western, but there might be one or two actors you're like, oh, they look very uncomfortable. They probably just learned for 4 days and then they said, okay, let's go. It doesn't matter that much, but it matters to me a little bit. It ruins it. Or like, you know, there's an example in movies where the movie's great. I love the movie. And then there's a moment where it's supposed to take place in a certain area, and I know those trees are not from there. Or they're showing a deer. It's not a deer, it's it's like a stag, it's a European deer, it's not North American. Things like that, they really bother me. They don't completely ruin the movie, but, you know. So I like to get all those things right. And I'm kind of detail-oriented in that way. And I know I can't do it perfectly, but let's say in Eastern Promises, I'm playing a Russian guy. I worked with someone to translate everything, even though I wasn't going to speak Russian all the time, but so I could do it. If the director said, oh, try this instead, I'm like, okay. And then I found people who spoke like that character would, not academic Russian, but from the streets, you know. And then I went to Russia. I had time, so I went. I spent a couple of weeks and kind of disappeared. I know the production people. This was before shooting. They were worried because it's like, I don't think I had a phone or anything. And I was going around the country to different places and just watching people, like, how do they walk? Certain kinds of men. What do they think is funny? You know, what's the sense of humor? That tells you a lot about a culture, about a people. You know, and I found in general just that there was a kind of fatalistic kind of sense of humor, very dry in some cases, and that informed the physicality. You know? So these little things that aren't in the script add layers of comfort to me. And I know from experience that my layers of comfort can add layers to the perception of the character for the audience, possibly. They may not know that there are layers, but they can feel something that feels in some way specific, or specifically authentic, hopefully, I don't know. I'm amazed at how many things you found out. Yeah, this name, Petayo Khamani in Lakota, it's, I guess it's someone who's literally carrying the fire that the tribe needs, but it's also on some spiritual level. I don't know why they gave me this name, but so your question is, what does this do?
Beh, noi lo sospettiamo su perché ti abbiano assegnato questo nome, perché effettivamente...
Oh, why did they give me this name? Oh, you suspect, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I enjoyed that experience. Well, it was interesting. Sometimes these things are practical also. Years later, Lisandro Alonso, who I worked with 2 times, Argentine director, he said to me, I want to film, there's a 3-part story I'm making, a movie that's Eureka, that's going to be shown in Italy soon, I think. It was in last year at Cannes, and it's been played. If you've ever seen Alessandro Alonso movie, they're unusual. They're a journey, each one, and this one is a big journey. And the second part of this sort of three-part story, the longest part, takes part in the Pine Ridge Reservation. He wanted to go. He had an idea that he wanted to shoot with Lakota people. I said, "Do you know anybody there?" I said, "I do." And so I introduced him to some people, and they sort of half adopted him, and it was very helpful, and he did a great job filming that part. And so you never know. Sometimes these chance meetings or encounters, it only becomes clear years later what the purpose of that was. In this case, I could help a friend.
Hai risposto benissimo, mi stava venendo in mente che molti altri, e tu, devo dire, attività rispettabili peraltro, però tu hai fatto tutt'altro e nel 2002 hai fondato una casa editrice che si chiama Percival Press, che da 23 anni, quindi quasi 25, pubblica delle cose bellissime. Vi invito ad andare sul sito perché è una sorta di viaggio, fotografie, poesie, scritti, racconti, libri. E ti chiedo se fu una follia. Insomma, non in molti l'avrebbero fatto. Tu non solo lo hai fatto, ma hai raccontato, non solo leggo ogni libro che viene pubblicato, ma controllo le bozze. C'è un'attenzione quasi artigianale a questa cosa, a questo lavoro che hai scelto di fare.
Yeah, I enjoy the process. I mean, in the same sense as when you're directing an actor, you can help them in a way. You can see sometimes what the obstacle is and maybe help them find a way to get comfortable more easily than you can help yourself as an actor. So you need directors, you know. Someone who can help you through, just like you need friends. They can see you're having a conflict in your life about employment or in a relationship, and a good friend can sometimes look more objectively at your situation and say, well, maybe you're doing too much of this, or maybe you're expecting too much from this person. Maybe just stop talking and listen. And so, in terms of editing books, it's a similar thing. You can help people find solutions, whether it's in a poem or a longer text, or the selection and juxtaposition of images, photographs, paintings, whatever. But essentially the reason that I founded Percival Press was because it's like the idea of you read a really good book, and you say, wow, and then you give it to a friend, or you recommend it, or you know, a record, music, anything. You want to share something you've seen. It's the same idea, that things that are difficult to find, maybe, you know, it's generally projects that we publish. We don't do that many, but they're usually things that wouldn't get published otherwise, or maybe not with such attention to detail, or not the way the author would like it to be seen, and so forth. And I do from beginning to end. I'm editing, and I also go to press. I mean, every book we've published, I see every page, and especially when it's images, color correction, but there are mistakes in the text, you know, so I do that. And you could say it's obsessive, but I don't feel like anxious about being upset. I just like it, I enjoy it. So as a director, I'm the same, you know, it's from beginning to end. There's not 1 second that I'm not in the editing room. That takes an editor who is understanding and patient. But there are some directors who don't care, you know, they don't even go to the editing room, or maybe they go once a week, or once every 2 weeks, and they make a few points, and then they just trust the person. I trust my editor a lot, and sometimes I sit there for hours and I don't say anything, but then I do, and then we talk about it, and then we work, and then some days we both are trying to figure out problems together. We have a good relationship, you know, and I really enjoy working with him. But to me, there's no detail. You have one chance to tell this story. So everything visually, let's say the case of the movie that I presented here last night, The dead don't hurt. I morti non soffrono. There's not anything, the clothing, the horses, the saddles, the town, the music, the sound mix. It's not that it has to be my idea, it's just that I want to make sure it all fits together and we're getting the best out of every detail of the story. But a lot of times the ideas come from other people. You know, what I learned from the really good directors that I've worked with, men and women, who make very different kinds of movies, is a good idea can come from anybody, at any time. And so it's important from the beginning, before you start shooting, is to make sure everybody knows that their opinions, their suggestions, their questions, there's no stupid question, you know, no stupid suggestion, and there's nobody that's excluded. Because I may not agree and I may not use the idea, but I might, or it might make me think of something else that I wouldn't have thought of if you didn't say this. It's one chance to tell the story each day, one chance to shoot this sequence. And so I always say, don't tell me tomorrow or next week about this genius idea. You know, I was thinking last Monday when we were shooting this scene, if you had only, and I'm like, well, we don't have the money to go reshoot it, so too late. So tell me now, and it's okay. And this does a couple of things. It helps me make a better movie. You know, if someone on the crew or the editor or an actor says something that I hadn't thought of, that improves what we're telling. And secondly, it makes people from the beginning feel like it's not just one more job. It's not just, I'm not here only for my specific area of expertise. I'm here as a member of a team telling a story that's only going to be told one time. So that's why. And yes, it can seem like obsessive, but you know, if you don't like it, you can go work with someone else. You know?
Sì, se questi registi che hai incontrato, dal regista di Picking ad Hanging Rock, Peter Weir, che ti diede il primo ruolo importante in Witness, il testimone dell'85, tutti i grandissimi registi con i quali hai lavorato dopo sapevano ascoltare. Ovviamente sono troppi, però voglio chiederti se te ne ricordi qualcuno con cui il rapporto è stato dialettico, in cui c'era realmente uno scambio.
Directors are different, you know, they're all different. I've worked with very good directors. Some like to rehearse a lot. Some like to analyze, some like to be very almost academic. Others don't like to rehearse at all. They can be academic if they need to be, but they don't feel a need to be to prove anything to anyone. David Cronenberg never rehearses, but you can ask him anything you want. And he listens, and if he thinks your idea is good, he'll take it and use it. And then it's his, and part of his story, you know. And, you know, I think the best thing you can do, I think in life, but certainly in the movie business, as a director, and especially as an actor, is you have to be flexible. You know, as an actor, you're going to work with not only all kinds of directors, some don't know how to explain anything to an actor, or actors make them very nervous. When actors have a question, they feel threatened or sometimes annoyed. Others invited. Some directors talk to actors in such an academic way that you finally go, wait, it's better, I can't act that. It's a concept, you know. Tell me what to do. Don't tell me what it means, you know. And then some directors are very quiet. Like Cronenberg, I remember the last movie I did with him, Crime to the Future. Here he was, because of the circumstances of the financing of the production, he wasn't able to shoot it in Toronto, where I think he wanted to shoot it. We shot it in Greece. And so he took advantage of these landscapes and did something different visually than he would have, but he was working with an entirely new crew, even his cinematographer. And I and one other actor who had worked with him years ago were the only actors that had worked with him, so everybody was new. And there was a couple of the other actors, one in particular, who asked me after the first 2 days of work, seemed worried. I said, "Can I ask you a question?" I said, "Sure." And is there something wrong? I go, "Something wrong with what?" He goes, "With me." I go, "I don't know. I don't know you very well, but you tell me." No, I said, "Is there something wrong at work, you mean, or what?" He goes, "Well, David doesn't say anything to me. It's like he just nods, and then we maybe do another take, or that's it. We do another scene." I said, "That's good." And they said, "That's good." I said, "Yeah, it's good. I mean, if he's not saying anything to you, it's because he likes what you're doing, you know? And he'll talk to you if it's not what he wants, you know? So I would say you have no problem at all, and count your blessings for the moment." But you know, so every director is different, and the best thing you can be as an actor is flexible, adaptable. The same with the actors you work with. I work with actors who are very generous, very well prepared, and they're the most fun because you can laugh, you can have a fun time, and you really bounce ideas and emotions off each other, and you create something that's better than what you could have thought of by yourself. And for a director, it's great when actors are getting along this way. Unless it's an insecure director that doesn't like it when people are having too much fun on their set. That's a whole other thing. But then there are actors who isolate themselves, and they don't like to talk to anybody. Some go to extremes that they only want to be called by the name of their character. Some of them who are important actors, which I think is very odd, have in their contract that nobody may look at them in the eyes, you know, it's like, you know, you work with all kinds of people. And then there's some actors who show up and they don't know their lines, and they feel like it makes it more alive. And maybe that's good for them, but it's kind of selfish because it's not very helpful to the other actors, because they're like, what the hell are they gonna say? I don't know what the next line's gonna be. But you have to be able to work with all of them. You can't just sit there and be mad because you don't like the way that one does. I mean, that's the business, you know? So be flexible, try to be patient. I get annoyed sometimes, and I'm not patient, but about that stuff, because I think that unprofessional behavior and selfish behavior, it bothers me, you know? But you have to be flexible. So that's the lesson I've learned. I think it's true in life too, obviously, but certainly in our business.
Mi veniva in mente che bisognerebbe aver avuto la leggerezza del tuo cane, Birgit, a cui tu avevi dedicato una poesia stupenda che diceva: sapevi come vivere, nessuno ti aveva detto che non sarebbe stato per sempre. E forse è una cosa che non bisognerebbe dire mai, che c'è una fine, no? Diventiamo meno spontanei, meno liberi, meno cani, ecco. Sì.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Yeah. That was a dog I cared very much about, and I was just trying to imagine what's the mentality of a dog. But I think people are like that too. Dogs, I don't think it occurs to them that they're going to die. Maybe it does. Maybe some of them will see their mother or father die, then they remember it. Dogs are pretty smart, so I don't know. But maybe the assumption is that animals are less conscious of this. We are not only conscious, we're so conscious that we don't want to think about it in general, you know. Death is something that is uncomfortable, illness, all these things, but it's obviously going to happen to all of us, you know. It's like ridiculous to ignore the fact. And sometimes it's amusing, you know, the idea that we're all running around, and it's like, why, you know? I mean, you can have a way of thinking. It's like, well, if we're all gonna die anyway, why should I brush my teeth? Why should I stop at the red light? You know, who cares? Why should I be nice to people? That's one way to look at it. But then the other way to look at it is, well, it's better to be nice. Your teeth will work longer if you brush them. I don't know. You may live longer if you stop at the red light. I mean, it's practical. But I've always thought about death, you know, which is not necessarily a negative thing. You know, there was a thing that, I think it was Sigmund Freud actually, that wrote somewhere in Latin, si vis vitam para mortem. If you want to live life, prepare to die. And it doesn't, I mean, it's better if it doesn't just come as a total shock. Oh my God, my mother died. How did that happen? You know, or now I'm gonna die. It's like, if it's a shock, then you haven't been thinking about it, obviously, too much. But as a kid, I remember very clearly the first time I understood kind of what it was. I mean, it was, I think, on the occasion of a dog dying, and I was like, wow, that means it's not there anymore. I was sort of trying to understand that. And then a horse dying. And then I was hearing about, well, here's a picture of, this was my grandmother. Of course, she's not with us anymore, blah, blah. So you're hearing these things as a kid. You're picking up these first bits of information about the finality of it all. And so I asked my mother, I said, are you gonna die? You know, and she was like, what? Why are you asking me that? And I said, well, no, I just wanna know. I mean, I would guess that I think you probably are going to die, right? And she's like, that's a very strange thing to be taught. Let's talk about something else. I said, no, I would like to know. And she finally told me yes. This is probably about the same time I started going to the movies. Maybe it's the movie's fault, I don't know. And she said, yes, but it's not going to be for a long time. And I said, how do you know? Could happen tomorrow. She says, well, no, but let's hope not. You know? And so I would ask, you know, who died in our family? She says, well, everybody who's not alive now came before. I'm like, wow, that's a lot of people. She said, yeah, I mean, who knows how many people. And I was obsessed with these things, not in a dark way. I wasn't feeling disturbed about it. I was just curious, you know. And I would ask her, and she would get a book out to read me a story at night in bed, and I would say, tell me who broke a bone in our family, you know. And so I would hear all these injuries. And she was like, really? And I go, yeah. Well, your uncle one time, he stepped on an oyster shell and cut his foot, and that was bad. And I'm, really? And then what did he do? And all the details, you know, about the frailty, our frailty and our finite existence, you know. I always found that fascinating. And so I also said, when she confessed that she was going to die, which I really knew, but I just wanted to hear her say it. I said, so me, I'm going to die too then. And here I am, like, I don't know, 4 years old or something, asking these questions. 5 maybe. And she finally had to say yes, because I insisted on her saying yes. You know, I don't hear it, just to be sure, because my mom knows things, right? So she should tell me. And I was okay with it. And she was like, are you okay? You know, whatever. Yeah, I'm fine. You know. And then we went on with our evening. But yeah, I've always found it interesting. It's not that I'm not really sad when someone dies. I can be really, it's devastating, you know. And some animals, dogs, in particular, I've been really, really sad. It depends on the relationship you have. And sometimes you don't feel it immediately, I'm sure. Most of you have had an experience like this, whether with an animal or a friend or a family member. Sometimes it doesn't hit you for days or weeks. Could be a year later, one day, something, there's a smell or something that reminds you of that person, and you just start crying, you know? And it's okay. It's part of life, you know? It's not like, oh shit, I'm fucked up now, there's something wrong with me because I'm crying. It's like, no, there's something that's functioning, that's flowing in you, you know? I don't like it. I resented death. I resent it. When she told me this and I realized it was really true, I'm gonna die, I was angry. I mean, I wasn't like upset. I was just like, not angry, like yelling, shouting, but I was like, I don't like it. It's not fair, you know what I mean? Like, whose idea was that? But not afraid, you know, just like, and since then, I swear, every morning, the first thing I think of, for a moment, when I first come conscious, whether I'm lying on my side or my back or in a chair, even sometimes on a plane and when I'm flying and I'm sleeping and then I open my eyes and I'm like, you know, okay, let's get busy, you know what I mean? Let's do stuff because who knows when it's going to be over. That's the motivation, I think, to make movies, to answer your question.
Piace più al mondo, no? Quello che tu dici rende interessanti gli uomini, la contraddizione, quindi hai il West, gli spari, la morte, il tradimento, l'abuso e poi hai improvvisamente la grazia, no? La grazia che è interpretata dai Vicky Krieps. Tutta questa verbosa domanda per chiederti, tu dove la trovi la grazia? Nei libri, nelle persone, negli altri, in un ricordo?
In the little unexpected, probably completely unnecessary acts of kindness, especially from strangers. The little courtesies, somebody who looks at you and smiles with their eyes because they see that you're having a bad day and you don't know this person. Or someone who sees you're in a hurry and just sort of steps out of the way. They don't have to, you know. I mean, or someone who just takes a second look at someone who's struggling in some way when other people are walking by. Why do people do it, you know? Schopenhauer also talked about this, compassion. Why do some people go out of their way to help a stranger, even on some occasions putting their own lives at risk? We've read about examples in literature or heard about them in the news. Someone who put their body in the way or tried to help someone from falling off a cliff and then they fell but the other person was saved and they never met this person. Why do people do it? Instead of being deliberately cruel, which we see so much of, not just physically, but in language. It's really upsetting, the divisiveness that we have today, more than I can ever remember in my lifetime. A lot of it obviously has to do with the bad examples that our so-called leaders, politicians, you know, they do things that work, they function. If it seems to be practical, that if you lie all the time, you can gain power and keep it, then you're going to do it more and more. There seems to be an epidemic of that these days in the world, more than I can remember in my lifetime, and it's disturbing, and that's the opposite of that. That's the opposite of compassion, that's the opposite of solidarity. It's not a right-wing, left-wing thing, not at all. It's much beyond that. It's much more important. It's like, we're only on this earth for a short while. You know, why not make the most of it, try to get along with people. I have moments where I have a bad temper and I'm intolerant, definitely. And then I later regret it immediately. But I try to be open, and when I realize I'm not, I try to change course. But then there are people who not only lie, but they feel it's a sign of weakness to ever apologize or ever admit they've made a mistake. And that's very hard for the people around them, or if they're leading a country, it's prejudicial to the society in general, and a bad example for young people, obviously. But I think always when people are like that, it must be really sad. I was like, what is your life like, you know? You must not be enjoying yourself very much. You know?
protestare, per chiedere il perché suo figlio fosse morto in guerra, e tu dal nulla, tra la mattina e l'orario in cui tuo figlio uscirà da scuola, prendi un aereo, arrivi lì, hai la fattoria degli animali sotto braccio per leggere nel caso avessi perso tempo, le porti un po' di frutta, la saluti, la conosci, poi risali su un aereo e ritorni a casa. Una cosa apparentemente di un'incoerenza assoluta, eppure in un certo senso molto coerente con quello che dicevi, della compassione, di un gesto. Ti ricordi questo momento?
Yeah, I'd forgotten, but you're right. I remember going to see her. It was kind of hot, and yeah, and then I guess maybe a couple of days later, then it became more in the news, and it was on TV a lot. And I remember getting a message, I think through my agent, my acting representative, and she said, "We got a call from what's his name? From CNN, the guy who now has the white hair. What's his name? Do you ever watch CNN?
Ancora di CNN.
Yeah, CNN. The guy, his mother was Gloria Vanderbilt. I don't know where her mother.
Mi piacerebbe saperlo, non lo so. Se qualcuno lo sa.
What? Anderson Cooper. And that he would like to talk to you about why you went to visit this woman and like that. And I was like, and I'm not saying this to try to make, oh, I'm a nice guy or I'm morally upright. I just thought that was just not necessary, I said, no, I went to see her because I want to see her. I did it. I don't need to be on TV about it. But it's interesting, sometimes Anderson Cooper or other people genuinely take an interest in something that's worth taking an interest in, and then sometimes it's just a passing thought. It means nothing. It's like, oh, this could sell on TV today, and then it's gone tomorrow. And now, society since 2005, the velocity of the loss of memory, recent memory about important things, has gone up incredibly to the point where it's extremely useful, obviously, especially to politicians, because they can count on people not remembering, even though it's all documented. There's videos. They can count on people not remembering what they felt even a year ago. Yes, we forget things, but the rate at which people forget now, because so much new shit that's useless, it seems to be so important, and then it's gone immediately. There's the disposable nature of the information that we are so desperate to have from moment to moment. I don't know what, I'm not saying there's something that needs to be done about it, I'm just noticing it. It's a disturbing thing, and I'm not, maybe I am old-fashioned, but the social media thing is just way the hell out of control as far as I'm concerned. And I don't have time for that. I mean, I have just enough time, and I don't answer all of them very quickly sometimes. Emails, I have a phone now, I have with me, but iPhone, and it's like I forget. I have to be reminded, did you look at your texts? I looked at the emails. No, but your text, the phone, oh shit, yeah, right. That's, to me, more than enough. I don't know how someone can have, and many people have talked about this and much more eloquently than me, but how do you have time for so much stuff like that? That then you forget. It seems like it's just like eating a Big Mac or something. It's gone. It's like it didn't really feed you. It's like done, gone. You spent the money, and it's like not good for your health, but it was nice at the moment. I can't even remember what it tasted like now. And just seeing people walking in Rome, looking at your phone, it's like, holy shit. Or people, the saddest thing is when you see people sitting, having a nice dinner together, face to face, and they're both looking at their phones while they're waiting for the food to arrive. That to me is like, it's sad. Anyway. I understand. We have deadlines, we have work to do. I myself have to check things sometimes, and they're really great tools, you know. But I suppose it's like guns, or aggressive dogs, or dogs generally. It's like, it's how you use them. They can be really helpful, they can be useful tools, but it's like, how do you use them? It's like concept versus practice, you know. I don't know. I'm going off on some. Sorry.
Tu hai parlato adesso di rimozione della memoria collettiva e del fatto che la storia in realtà non ci insegna nulla perché appunto tendiamo a eliderla, però quando la perdita di memoria è entrata per esempio in forma para-autobiografica nel tuo primo bellissimo film in Falling, tu hai detto che dal progressivo deterioramento della coscienza di tuo padre a partire dalla perdita di memoria tu hai capito quanto è importante ascoltare, non solo un punto di vista diverso dal tuo, come hai detto prima, ma in generale. Ad un certo punto far cessare le parole, tacere, stare zitti e sentire veramente gli altri, mettendosi dal loro punto di vista. E questa cosa è avvenuta nel dolore, nella malattia, nell'assenza.
Well, there's many people that have written about and talked about the idea that the moment to moment. Now I'm looking at you. Now I'm looking at you. Now I'm looking at you. But all the nows before that now are gone. And the ones to come are not here yet. So it's only the one now that's really real. So one thing I was thinking a lot about making this movie Falling, that if you haven't seen it, the main character is an older man, about 80, who has dementia, and he has a conflictive relationship with his oldest child, his son. And then there's a lot of flashbacks. The structure of the story is that done that way for different reasons than it is in, say, The Dead Don't Hurt. It has to do with memory and the fallibility of memory, you know. It's not just the old man that can't remember things quite right, but there are different points of view, sort of Rashomon idea, you know, different versions of the same event from depending on whose point of view. But memory is not at all reliable. It's worth having the feelings about it, but even the feelings about it are affected by the picture you have now of something that's wasn't that way. You know, you can only think about conversations with friends or family members where you say, you remember that time when we were little, we were by the lake, and you know, and that kid looked like they were drowning and we all jumped in, and like, no, that's not how it happened. And you weren't there. I told you about that. And this kid wasn't drowning, you know. So it's like, really? And you're sure it was that way? I mean, or things that are less significant than that. They change, and they change as we get older. You know, things I remember, I can tell you these stories, like the story about going to the movies to see Lawrence of Arabia. If my mother was still alive, she might tell it differently. You know? It's as best as I recall, that's what it was, exactly, right? But then I know I've told that story before, so maybe I'm telling the version that I've told and not what happened, you know? So, and as you get older, if I tell that story 10 years from now, I'll probably tell it slightly differently. That doesn't mean I'm lying, it's just what I really think happened now. But it's not true. It's never completely true. And that's the fascinating thing about making, I suppose, any kind of art, but a movie story. I make this movie story, I do the best I can, and then once you see it, it's a different movie, because you bring to it your lifetime of experience, not just watching movies, but just being a human being, or how you feel that day. If you see it tomorrow, you might feel differently about it. And last night, you know, I was watching the movie, and I was going to watch the first 10 minutes, because in the editing I saw the movie literally probably 300 times at least. as far as all the way through, dozens and dozens of times, but I know every frame of that movie, every sound so well. And then traveling around the world this past year, I've seen it many times where I thought, well, I'll watch 10 minutes, and then I end up sitting, and the reason I do is not out of a vanity of, oh, I want to watch my movie, I think it's so good, I need to watch it again. No, in a way I'm like, no, I don't want to see it again, I've seen it so much. But then there's something happens. Each room, the space itself, changes the movie. And especially the people sitting there, the feeling I have watching the movie, it's a different movie each time. So last night, I told the distributor I was sitting next to him, I said, okay, I'll probably go out and have a cup of coffee and I'll see you at the end, I'll come back. No, you have to come back at the end because when the light, yeah, I'll come back, I'm just gonna watch the beginning. I just want to make sure the sound is right, technically. And then I'm watching the movie, it's a different movie because of who I'm with, and so I like this. I like the fact that you give it away and it's gone. It's not yours, you can't control what other people think. You can disagree, you can not like what a critic says, or someone can point out something to you. Well, I think you're talking about this, and you're like, I don't know why you think that, but I mean, you have a right to think whatever you want about what you're watching. It's not an obligation for you to agree with what I did or what I think. That would be kind of boring if we all thought the same thing, There are political systems that have, on the right and the left, that would like it to be that way, that everybody thinks the same way, but we don't, no matter how much that is enforced on us. So I like that about movies. You hand them over, it's your movie. Tell me about your movie. That's why I like the Q&As after. Those are the most interesting experiences.
Negli anni '80 con Joe Mantegna, che si intitolava appunto Things Change, che cosa non è cambiato in questi primi, tra l'altro domani, credo dopodomani tu compi gli anni, in questi primi 60 anni, cosa non è cambiato, cosa è rimasto uguale in te?
I'm headed for death.
Grazie davvero a Viggo Mortensen, grazie a chi l'ha ascoltato. Andate a vedere questo film bellissimo.